Welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast, where our mission is to encourage, equip, and empower every woman on her faith journey with Jesus Christ. Today, we are honored to hear from Operations Director, Clinical Social Worker, wife, mom, and jigsaw puzzler Stacy Sikorski as she has a conversation with our podcast host, McKelty Bloom. In this episode, you'll hear Stacy share about mental health and navigating stress, as well as how to prepare for stressful holiday seasons and practical tools to set yourself up for a win. She is passionate about family and caring for others from your healthiest you. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Stacy Sikorski, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I have to ask, I was thinking about this. How often do people say Sikorski? Like they add a T in there. In your last name?
I don't know. But I think anytime you have a name that has like a ski on the end, people like freak out. And so I know when I was learning the last name, since it is my married name, my husband was like, it's like you're sick or you go skiing, sick or ski. And I was like, okay. So then that's how I've told people when they like have that panic look on their face and then they don't say my last name. I'm like, okay, it's not that hard.
That's a really good way to think of it. And I asked because I'm pretty sure I added a T for the first 3 years I knew you.
Oh, that's hilarious. And I would never caught on. So you're totally fine.
And then I realized it one day and I was like, you know what? There's no T here. So now I always like triple guess myself. But I love it. Well, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast today. And it's, extra fun for me just because not only are you a guest here, but I've known you, I think for like 7 years now. I was trying to do the math in my head and you've become a mentor in my life and a friend. And so it's really just a pleasure to sit and chat with you. But for those who don't know you, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself just personally and career and just who Stacy is.
Yeah. Awesome. I do think it's been 7 years. So I'm pretty sure. I'm a social worker. So that's what I do, not who I am, but what I do. And I've been a social worker now for 22 years. And I have had the luxury, I will say, of being able to be in a lot of different facets of social work, which is why I love that field so much. So I've done schools, I've done mental health, I've done residential for kids, I've done worked with homeless teens, dual diagnosed clients, drug and alcohol rehab. I worked in higher ed. Which is how I met you, working at North Central University. And then now for the last little bit, I have had the pleasure of leading an amazing group of people here in Minnesota. And I work at Nexus Kindred Family Healing, and we are a foster care and an adoption agency. And we do adoption within the foster care system here in Minnesota. So that's a little bit about what I do. And I have a family. So my husband, Adam, we've been married for 20 years and he teaches at North Central in the pastoral department. And we have 2 kiddos, a 17-year-old girl who's a senior this year and a 13-year-old boy who will be going in 8th grade. So my job and my family keeps me pretty busy. I don't have a ton of extra time. But I love doing things with my family. And so we love to stay active. We live here in the Metro and the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And I love finding things to do within our community, within the Metro area. So whether that's hiking or festivals or, I don't know, whatever is going on, I just love to find it and do that. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, you guys are always so busy and I love it. You're like that, my idea mom, where I'm like, okay, that's a good idea, Stacy. I'm going to try that. Or
I know this past summer we went to, we did our first ever like up north trip and we like went, Duluth to, Grand Marais and, Grand Portage. And then we went into, the Boundary Water type area. And a lot of people were like, okay, you need to like write out what you did every day and sell that to people because your social media really made me want to go. So
Well, you're
I'm glad I
also
can be the idea mom.
you are also like the queen of planning things and so
Yes, that is
organized. So
true.
yes, that completely makes sense.
That's funny. I love that.
Well, I am excited to talk today about what we're just going to be discussing because Bridging the Gap believes so strongly in addressing like mental health and self-care and just having some mindfulness around what that really means. And so we have just made it a goal that, a couple times a year, we're going to use this platform as a resource for people to be encouraging them and bringing awareness. And we've had a few people on that have talked about mental health in a variety of different ways. And I think that's what I like about talking about mental health is you can take it in different avenues. And we've talked about, stress, and we've talked about more of the psychology of it and what that is, what anxiety is. But you are someone who, again, I've had years and years of watching you do this so well that you understand mental health. And not only do you educate on it, but you're like, okay, what can we do about it though? Like, this is the concern, anxiety, depression. I'd love for you to spend some time too in a little bit talking about what you saw in higher education when you were part of the Student Success Center and just the real challenges that people are facing. And then you're like, okay, here are action steps. Like, let's do something about it. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited just to jump in and talk about that today. But just as a brief overview, we've seen such an increase in awareness in mental health, but what has that meant for you, in your personal life, in your professional life with social work? Hello, mental health everywhere. But what has that just been like for you? And why is it so important that we have these open and non-shaming conversations about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. 22 years ago, I would say professionally, when I thought about mental health, I really thought about it as something when there was a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think what I've really learned over time is that mental health is just a part of who God created us to be. You're right. Like He created our bodies. He created our minds. He created our emotions. He created all of those things. And so I've just really learned both personally and professionally over time that mental health is a part of who we are, and that we need to pay attention to it. Just like we pay attention to all the other aspects of our life, just like we feed our bodies, just like we feed our souls, just like we work on relationships, just like, we make sure that we go to the doctor or we brush our teeth, or, we do both preventative measures and we just do things because it keeps us alive, right? Mm-hmm. And I think mental health should be no different. And I think over time, we have, there used to be a lot more stigma with mental health. And I think the last several generations have really done some great work to say, we're not doing this anymore. We're not going to allow there to be stigma within the church, within the workplace, within schools, within our society. Like, it's okay to talk about mental health, and we should, just because I think it's who we are, and we really do have to pay attention. So that's probably been my biggest thing over my lifetime, is just recognizing it's we have to talk about it. We have to deal with it. We have to work on it, just like we brush our teeth, eat food, sleep, and do all those things. It's just a part of who we are.
I really love how you phrase all that, because it's true. I was thinking as you were talking, like whenever someone said mental health, I think my mind instantly went negative. Like, oh, my mental health isn't good, or, oh, challenges. But it's just the state of health of your mental state.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
That's a really good point to look at it that way.
Well, I think so. One of my, I'll kind of share some of my big like mantras or like things that I hold close. And one of the things that I have really come to connect with as part of who I am is this idea that so often in life we think things are either or, but really things are both and. Like you either like spicy food or you don't. You are either a Democrat or you're a Republican. You either have your mental health is good or it's bad. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on about the either ors. But I really think life is way more both ands than either or. And you can feel happy and maybe struggle some with mental health, right? Like you can struggle with mental health, anxiety, sadness, and love Jesus fiercely.
Yeah.
You can practice self-care and be happy. And some days you just wake up and you have the blues, right? And so I just think with mental health and the whole idea of talking about it is it can't just really be categorized as like it's going well or it's not going well. I think there's a lot more gray and both ands than there are just this very strict either or. Oh, I have anxiety. And so, I must not have happy days or I must not have calm days. Like things can very much so be a both and when we're talking about mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And when you have that both and, it's so important to understand that balance and to decide like, okay, when I'm having this balance, as in anything in life, I have to do reflection. I have to figure out like what it specifically means for me, because it means something so different for every single person. And I think that goes a lot with the term self-care. Like you hear it all the time now, and people talking about self-care, just trying to dive into it, giving tips of what self-care means to them. But I'm just curious, especially coming from a person who has had very high intensity jobs for years and years and years, where self-care is just a much needed priority just to have basic sanity during the day. What does that specifically mean for you? And what are just like practical things that you have maybe done to help yourself in that area?
Yeah. Well, I really don't think you can talk about self-care I can't talk about it without talking a little bit about the brain. So I'm going to keep it just like real simple. And I will say our downstairs part of our brain, the farthest part of our brain is actually the amygdala. And it is what is first developed in utero, is that downstairs part of the brain. And that's the part that controls your breathing, your blood pressure, your heart rate, but also the fight, flight, freeze. So those are our alert responses. Okay. So downstairs part, the upstairs part of your brain, in the front, like where your forehead is your prefrontal cortex. And I like to call it our CEO of our brain. So that is directing the conscious part. So that's our attention and our planning and our reasoning and working memory and all of those kinds of things. I think, so I'm going to say all that because it's, I think what has happened in our society is that we live this stress state because we don't actually like finish or like work through our stress the way that we used to, like back in caveman days. And some of this is, some of what I'm talking about is some stuff that I've gathered from a book called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. It's not a Christian book, which is fine. It's amazing, amazing content about like releasing that stress cycle. And it actually talks specifically about how women experience burnout very differently from men. So I would strongly encourage people if you like experience that burnout or whatever. But if you think about that downstairs part of the brain, you think about like back in caveman days, when someone was being chased by a lion, right? That downstairs part of your brain activates, it's fires, and you're like running from the bear. You have like so your body is moving, your heart rate is elevated, your adrenaline is pumping, you have very much so laser focus of how you're going to escape the lion. So you're running, you get back to your village and, you escape this lion and you're cheering and you're celebrating with all the other people in the village, and your body recognizes, oh, okay, the fear is gone. I don't have to run anymore. So what your body has done, what your brain has done is it's triggered the rest of your body that it can relax and it can calm. We don't do that anymore. So the stress that comes to us, let's just talk about driving in traffic in the Twin Cities, right? You're like driving in traffic and people are honking, and what was supposed to be a 20-minute ride is now a 60-minute ride. And your fight, flight, freeze is like firing. You get into your driveway, you turn off the car, you walk inside. Your brain is still firing at that fight, flight, freeze because you haven't done anything to close that stress cycle. So you snap at your kids, you get irritated easily. You just feel stressed out, right? So when you actually close that stress cycle, you could say some of it is self-care. Then your brain has told the rest of your body it can calm, it can relax. So when I think about self-care, I don't think about it as bubble baths and chocolate, although those are really awesome things, right? I'm not going, or even a vacation. That is like something you do, but I really think self-care has to be something that you implement on a daily basis in little ways, because otherwise you're gonna burn out. So if we go back to the idea of commuting, and there was an accident and you're sitting there and you come home and, your shoulders are like really tense, because of the drive, get out of the car and do 20 jumping jacks. Right there. You just closed your stress cycle by 20 jumping jacks. You didn't go inside and do a 45-minute bubble bath. You did 20 jumping jacks, but just that alone reduces that stress cycle. So the book, if you got the book, it'll tell you a lot more ideas, but it can be as simple as going for a walk, exercising, something that's going to help trigger the brain, journaling, singing, different things like that. They have about 25 different things that they talk about, but I think it's important for people to be intentional when they're recognizing stress. And you can, close that stress cycle by doing something specific in those moments. So for me, that's like one thing about self-care is you got to understand the brain. You got to understand what's happening in your body, because stress lives within our body. It's not just an external thing, but our body actually significantly is impacted by stress. Blood pressure, heart rate, anxiety, depression, all kinds of things happen if we don't deal with stress. So that's like my part A, which I know is kind of long-winded.
I love it.
But to go back to like, what are things that we can do? I think again, you got to find ways to build in, self-care moments. I think the word self-care is really overused. But if you break it down, it's caring for yourself. That's what it is. So it's recognizing what your body is telling you. It's recognizing your sleep. It's ensuring that you're fueling your body appropriately so you can take care of your day-to-day life. And then it's building in little things. It can be big things as well, but building in little things on a daily basis, just to make sure that you're truly taking care of yourself. I think different seasons require different types of self-care.
Yeah.
Right. So you're about to have baby number 2.
Yeah.
And, the amount of time you're going to have for self-care is about like 2.2 seconds, right? So it's like thinking ahead of time, like, what do I need in order to be the best me in this season? It may be having someone come and help you with your laundry. It may be having someone come and hold a baby so you can take a 30-minute nap. It may be asking your friends if they'll do a meal train for you so you don't have to think about dinners, right? It's you being intentional and finding things that are going to help you in a specific season. I have much older kids, and now I don't see the whites of their eyes until like 1 PM in the summer, right? So like my self-care isn't about someone doing my laundry and things like that. My self-care is just because my job is so demanding, and the amount of hours I'm currently having to put in, that I have to be intentional and build in self-care in other ways. So I work from home. I'm a huge people person. I don't get to see people as much anymore. So I've been really intentional about having coffee or lunch with somebody twice a month. I've been super intentional about going for walks in the evening and listening to music. I've been intentional about, I love having something to look forward to. So planning a trip or a big outing or something. So I always have something to look forward to. Again, it's not bubble baths and chocolate are great, but those are going to be real temporary. And you got to get to the heart and like who you are and what's going to actually like fill you back up. So that's kind of my really long answer that you asked, because I think you just got to understand your brain, your body. I would highly recommend that book about burnout and like closing that stress cycle and finding little things, to build into your day so that you can make sure that you don't get to a burnout phase. I mean, that's really what we're trying to prevent here, is being snarky and snippy and tired and not being the best version of you. And so I think it'll be very different for everybody depending on the season that they're in.
Who is an exemplary woman leader in your life? Nominate her for the Lund Leadership Award. Bridging the Gap believes all women are leaders, and it's our desire to honor women who lead with excellence in various areas, including in ministry, marketplace, community, and family. The Lund Leadership Award was created to recognize individuals who demonstrate exceptional leadership and empower other women to step into leadership as well. The former Bridging the Gap director of 25 years, Kara Lund, is a beautiful example of this, and we are honored to name the award after her and her legacy at Bridging the Gap. The award will be presented annually at the Sisterhood Leadership Retreat. To learn more about nomination criteria and how you can nominate an amazing woman leader in your life, go to mnbtg.org/sisterhood/Lund Leadership Award. The deadline for nominations is 11:59 p.m. on October 31st. Visit our website. Again, that's mnbtg.org/sisterhood/Lund Leadership Award and submit your nomination today.
No, I really appreciate all of that because I agree. I think the term self-care can be so overused and it can be used more as like a Band-Aid. Like you said, like, oh, okay, you're overwhelmed. Just take a quick weekend getaway or just go to the spa for a minute, or go get a massage. It's a lot of Band-Aids and people don't fully understand the education of, wait, why am I continuing to get to the point where I need all of these things just to have a calm day and to have my mind right. So I just really hope that all the listeners here are just taking in that education and really thinking for themselves too of, wow, okay, where are my moments where I'm feeling like I have not closed that stress cycle? I think that was a perfect visual, and thinking, what can I do then in those moments? Is it doing quick jumping jacks for 15 minutes? Is it just something else that I can do quickly? And instead of it being this long, drawn out thing that, takes you a day away from your family and implementing it every single day. So I think that was absolutely perfect. And another concept I've heard you talk more about too is mindfulness. Now, is that similar to self-care or is it a little bit different? How would you describe that?
Well, I first want to say that some people might get a little freaked out by us just using the word mindfulness within the church, right? Because they're like, oh my word, they're about to start talking about some Eastern religion. And let me just say that is not true. Okay. We can see parts of mindfulness and because mindfulness is just paying attention in a particular way. That's actually the definition. It literally is paying attention in a particular way. And you can actually see parts of mindfulness or awareness expressed in scripture and throughout Christian history. The Bible tells us to exercise disciplined attentiveness to our minds and our hearts, and to set aside our attachment to ourselves and live in awareness of God. So I just want to say that up front, that we're not talking about some Eastern religion here, but we're just talking about paying attention. And I think mindfulness is one of many things that should be in someone's tool belt on how to live life. Just like I think you should understand the brain and your body. That's one thing you can put in your tool belt or your toolbox. Self-care and finding the things that you enjoy should also be in your toolbox. I also think mindfulness should be in your toolbox. And mindfulness is about stress reduction, and it's a tool to help you with the stress reduction. And I want to kind of tie our last conversation in this together by saying there's a difference between stressors and stress. So stressors are the things like worrying about finances or health issues or, your commute or, things like that. Stress are the things that actually threaten you. It's the things that threaten us. It's the things that we will be like the running from the lion type of a deal, right? So the stress is like the chronic part. When you're dealing with the stress, it's not, and you're doing mindfulness or self-care, it doesn't take away your stressors. The stressors are still going to be there, right? If you have to commute to work, it's going to be there every single day. But it's using mindfulness or other techniques to help you deal with the stress of the stressors. So I just think it's like when we're talking about using these different tools, it doesn't take away the stressors. It just helps you manage the stress of them. And so just thought I'd kind of share that a little bit. Mindfulness is something that helps you just quiet your mind so that you're dealing with that stress piece of it. There's lots of benefits to mindfulness. There's tons of empirical evidence about when people use mindfulness. There's some really great research and evidence about how the brain actually changes. Like if you aren't aware, your brain, it actually can grow and develop. It can also die in parts of it based on different things that happen in your life. But when people use mindfulness, they've actually seen lots of changes happen in the brain. And I won't get into all the crazy science of it, but one of my favorite people is Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She's an amazing, wonderful Christian, and she's an amazing neuroscientist, and she has some great stuff out there as well. But mindfulness is the act of just being present. I read on social media today, a mom shared, just having a hard time letting her kids go to college. And so she was just, sharing a little story about, you got to sometimes put your baby in the basket, referring to the Bible story, and let them go. She has some younger kids in the home. And so she said she was super intentional when she was rocking them to pay focused attention to their eyelashes and just savor that moment. And she said nothing magical or anything crazy happened, but it just quieted her. She quieted herself, right? She just took in the moment. It didn't take away her sadness about sending her other kid to college, but watching her younger one's eyelashes just quieted herself. And she was just reminded by the Lord that he's with her and he's with her through her emotions, and that he was present. And that's really what mindfulness is. It's paying attention to something specific. And so people can use it in a lot of ways. I love that in scripture, it tells us to quiet ourselves. How many times have we heard that we need to listen to the Lord, right? Our world is so busy. We have so much stuff coming at us. And let's not lose in the busyness and the stress that our lives cause us, that opportunity to just be still and quiet. You can focus on your breath. You have a kiddo at home who's just really feeling dysregulated. Go outside. Nature is like the number one way to practice mindfulness.
Yeah.
My cousin is a new mom of her second one. And she said every single time her little one is fussy and her 2-year-old is a little bit crazy, she always goes outside. And the moment she goes outside, the fussy one instantly quiets. And there's something amazing about being in nature. Go lay outside and watch the clouds. Take your 3-year-old who's driving you crazy and go outside, lay on the grass and watch the clouds. Pay focused attention to a flower. Take a scripture verse and just go word by word by word. Read the first word out loud and just be still and think and ponder on that word. It's paying special attention to one thing and go word by word by word. That's lots of different ideas of mindfulness. But again, I think it's just a tool within your tool belt, along with self-care and several other things that people can use. But it's not something to be scary. I think, yes, you need to be careful. As Christians, we need to be careful about what we listen to and what we put in our minds and hearts. But we see it in scripture, and it's something that anybody can do. And it's a really easy tool to help us with our mental health and self-care.
Yeah, I really like that, classification of it being, just a time that you're quieting your mind. And for me, I've seen that. I'm glad you mentioned nature, because that's where it is big time for me. We have a walking path, and my favorite time is in the fall and just walking and looking at the trees, like paying extra attention to the colors of the leaves and what's happening. What do I hear? Like, for some reason, when you're just having more awareness of your surroundings and that calm atmosphere, your mind just shuts down. Like, it just quiets itself. And those have been some of my big moments with God, is because when you finally do have all of the noise out of your head, you're able just to hear him easier and calm your whole body. Because when your mind is calm, your body can calm down. So I think that was just the perfect explanation of it.
Well, and if you go back to the brain, right? When we do those things, you're going from your downstairs part of your brain, your fight, flight, freeze. So when you're under a lot of stress and you haven't closed that cycle, that's the part of your brain that you're living your life out of. Yeah. So it's just constantly, it's someone who's commuting and gets cut off and they go into road rage. Okay. Should somebody cutting you off in traffic make you have the same response as if the lion was chasing you? No, it shouldn't. But when that part of the brain is so activated because we haven't calmed ourselves, we haven't closed our stress cycles, then that's how we respond to everything. But when we do that, when we calm ourselves, connect with nature, do mindfulness, spend that time listening to worship, doing our devotions, praying, all of those types of things, then we get back into our upstairs part of our brain. It's the reasoning part of our brain. It's our CEO brain. And that's how we can then function better, is when we are ensuring that we're in that part of the brain versus the lower. And you can do the same thing with your kids. If you have kids at home, think about it. When they're having that tantrum, they are using their downstairs part of the brain. What can I do as the parent to help them use their upstairs brain? Okay, let's breathe together. Let's go put our hands under cold water and wash our hands. Let's go outside and look at the clouds or at the sun, or let's just take some breaths or whatever. There's lots of things that as parents we can also do to help our kids regulate, because it's all about getting to that upstairs part of the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about this for forever. I think it's just so passionate about.
I know, me too. It is one of my things.
Oh, yeah, always. But I think one of the things I was excited to focus on today too, and just to bring some awareness, is the holiday stress. Because this was something I think of like 2 or 3 years ago. Of course, it's heightened as I'm newly married, because now it's just not my family. I'm juggling. It's, his family. We're planning. There's lots of events in the holidays. The holidays are just busy in general. And I just found myself a couple years ago being like, I don't really like Holiday McKelty. She's not, she isn't really patient or kind. Like, I'm not feeling the holiday spirit. And so I think for me, I was getting so worked up and so stressed that I couldn't be present. I couldn't, just take a deep breath and enjoy the moment. I'm sitting here. What meals do I need to put out next for people? Are they thirsty? How can I, hostess mode? And I think that it just added this whole layer. And I know for me, I have just a small amount of stress compared to what I know a lot of people carry over the holidays. It brings a deeper sense of anxiety for some, whether that's because of maybe trauma that they've experienced. And so the holidays kind of activates that, or they lost somebody in the year and this is the first holiday that they're not there. And so there's a lot of grief. And I just know in general that it can just have a ton of heaviness. And as we're about to jump into the holiday season, I don't know, I just wanted to have a conversation about this and just to hear your thoughts of why it might be more difficult for some people. What can we do to be present, to try to eliminate some of that stress? Because again, you can't get rid of the stressors always, the stress, as we jump into this holiday season.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. The holidays can be a huge stressor for people as well as stress, just because of the nature of all of the different things that you talked about. So I think there's two big things that people can do outside of some of the stuff that we've already talked about, like, being mindful, practicing some mindfulness, using that self-care, making sure that they're not letting those things go because of the busyness of the season. But for me, I think it's two big things. One is setting boundaries and adjusting your expectations. And so I'll kind of dive into both of those a little bit. When it comes to adjusting expectations, I'm going to use myself as an example. And so back when the Elf on the Shelf was brand new. Okay. Brand new. And McKelty, you know this about me. I really don't do anything halfway. It's like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be all in. So before Pinterest was even a thing, okay, when Elf was brand new, I was like, I'm going to get real creative with my Elf on the Shelf. Now, mind you, again, there's no Pinterest for you to Google and find different ideas. I made elaborate Elf on the Shelf themes every single night. It was ridiculous. I would make a whole plan and a schedule of what he was going to do every night. I wrote out what materials I needed and had this whole huge game plan. Okay, that was really cool for 1 year. And then after that, I was like, well, now I've set my standard ridiculously high, to the point when there was a lot going on in our life, and we had moved to Philadelphia and moved our whole family across the country. And I ended up having a diagnosis of cancer and was dealing with that. And then the holidays came, and I remember putting the Elf literally just on a shelf, and my kids saying, man, the Elf in Philadelphia is really lame. Okay. I had set my standard way too high. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do fun things and you can't have some elaborate things for your kids or whatever. I'm not saying that, except for I just think it's a good example of did my kids really care? They're 18 and 13 now. Do they really, do they think about the gazillion elf things that happened every single night. No, they just have a memory of fun times at Christmas, but I dreaded doing it. And so I think we just set our expectations too high sometimes. I think we're like, I have to be that mom. And I don't know, for me, that it was like, I had to be that mom because we didn't have social media like that. We didn't have Pinterest like that. So I didn't have anything to measure myself against. But unfortunately, we do have social media now. We do have this crazy expectation that your tree's supposed to look a certain way and that all your wrapping paper has to be perfect and you have to find the perfect gift and you have to do cookies as a family and then you have to post about it. And so your kitchen needs to look just right. And you have to. And I think then we put ourselves in this huge conundrum of that our expectations have been too high. So I think when you know the holiday is already busy, you know that there's a lot of big feels if it is like the first holiday without the loved one, or it's a very traumatic time, because of family dynamics. Adjust your expectations. Don't say yes to every single thing, which goes into the boundaries. I also love the book Present Over Perfect by Shauna Niequist. And chapter 5 radically changed my life. So I think the whole book is great, but if you just want to read chapter 5, read chapter 5. And it's this idea of monitoring our yeses. If you think about it as every time you say yes to something, you put out a physical chair, right? And like your backside sits in it. Okay. So I am a mom, that's a chair. I'm a mom to 2 kids, so that's 2 chairs. I'm a wife, that's 3 chairs. I run a business, that's 4 chairs. I teach a class on the side, that's 5 chairs. I'm a daughter. I do Sunday, or I teach kids church once a month. I this. Every time you say yes, you physically put out a chair. You can only sit in so many chairs. And when one chair takes up more time, your other chairs are going to suffer. So I currently had a season where I was working 50, 60 hours a week because of my agency that I'm running. And so, you know what? I wasn't a very present mom. I wasn't a very present wife. I couldn't go and do coffees with people. I couldn't do a lot of things. My laundry was piling up, all of those different, I didn't take care of myself. I wasn't going on my walks. All the things that I actually just preached, talked about a moment ago, I wasn't doing for myself very well because my one chair was taking up all of my time. So in the holidays, you really got to monitor your yeses and you got to be okay with saying no based on you are going to determine what type of holiday you're going to have. If you say yes to a lot of things, then you're going to be really busy. If you say yes to having family over and hosting, then that's the chair you put out, right? And so, but then monitor some of your yeses and your expectations about that. Have pizza, ask everyone to bring a dish so that you don't have to prepare everything. Make a charcuterie board and it's super fast and easy, but don't look online and make it so that it has to be Pinterest worthy. Who cares? Just put it out on the table, adjust your expectations and then set that boundaries and be okay with saying no. And so I think especially, for people during the holidays, there's a lot going on. So pull it back, pull back a little bit. And I think that can be true for just different seasons of life, right? Yeah. I'm about to go into my daughter's senior year. And so we've decided as a family that we're going to pull back on some things. She's been an Irish dancer for 10 years. She's not going to Irish dance this year because she wants to be able to have more time to be with friends and family and not have, so much of her time be at dance. She wants to make sure she can focus on her studies as she's getting ready to apply to colleges, So teaching her as a kid, you ask my kids, they'll tell you about what it means to say yes and about a chair because they hear it all the time from me. Like, you say yes to one thing, are you ready to say no to something else? Because you can only fit so much. So yeah, those would be my two big things: setting boundaries in your emotions, setting boundaries with how much time you can spend with family. Don't overextend it so that then you all leave ugly, right? Because emotions got high. If you have a family where it's like, 2 hours is all you can spend, then you set the boundary ahead of time. And if they're like, oh, but we want you to stay all day and then we'll do this and this and this. If the pattern is 2 hours is all you can do, then you set the boundary and say, we will be there from 12 until 2, and then we'll have to go. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You are your own boss in that way. Or you're traveling and it's like, we can do 3 days, but that's it. Because usually after 3 days, everyone's crabby, everyone's tired, and emotions run thin. Then set your boundary for 3 days. And when they try to talk you into something else, again, that's part of you taking care of yourself and setting that boundary and say, nope, we'll be there for 3 days. But when we set out too many chairs, something's going to give. And oftentimes that's our own mental health. It's our own self-care. It's all of those types of things that we talked about.
Yeah, no, everything you said, I just completely relate to and have experienced in my own life too, of just that. Yeah, I needed to do that. And I needed to put boundaries, because it's so easy to all of a sudden your December is filled up, and then you're dreading going to all these holiday parties. You got your work holiday party, family, friends, and you're like, I should be enjoying this. This is supposed to be the happiest month of the year or whatever. And I'm miserable fighting with my husband all the time. It's so important that even if it feels uncomfortable having to say no to some family or figuring that out, you have to do it. And I love what you said about seasons, because just because you might not be able to go to that one tradition that you always have done this year doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. And I think we have to alleviate some of that pressure off of ourselves. And as, like you said, I'm about to have a baby in this holiday season, and Thanksgiving is normally my favorite holiday. I love it so much. And I said, guys, I'm out this year. Sorry, don't count on us. Probably isn't going to work out. I don't know what that's going to look like. And it made me really sad, but I have to do that for this season. Next year will be different. So hopefully that just gives people permission in a weird way. Sometimes I think we need permission to just back out of something this year, or just to take a load off and put those boundaries and expectations where they need to be. But, this has been so informative, Stacy. I just honestly could talk about this for hours. That both of our social worky selves here. But I want to be respectful of your time and everyone else's time. But is there just any final things that you're like, man, I wish I would have said this or something before we wrap up here?
I don't think so. I guess one other thing I would just say is just to make sure that you're building a village of people that are like-minded. And that can be like your champions of your own self-care, or your ability to say no to things. I think sometimes if that doesn't come natural to you, you need to have your people that are going to check in with you. If you're finding yourself in that burnout and not being able to complete that stress cycle, grab 2 of those books, read it with a girlfriend or, a family member, and talk about it, and then be accountable to one another. Or when I had a really hard time saying no to things, I had a really close friend of mine who we read that Shauna Niequist book together. And when it just really, chapter 5 really changed me. She was an accountability partner for me to say no. And so was my husband. And so for a season, until I got better at it, anytime someone would ask me, I would say something to those 2 people. And then they would be like, monitor your chairs, monitor. And I literally have, this is an audio, but sitting in front of me at my computer, I have a miniature chair that literally sits right next to and it's a visual reminder. So I just would encourage you, if you if setting expectations or adjusting your expectations or boundaries or self-care or mindfulness is difficult, find someone else that can help you as you work to develop those muscles in your life, because it will just help you. No one wants to walk this road alone, and not in any of these subjects either. So just, find a buddy and help them help you learn these new skills.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so good, Stacy. And I knew the second you said that book, I was like, she's going to talk about those chairs. I knew it. I love it. I loved that chapter as well. I think that it's just a good visual representation. But thank you so much for just sharing your wisdom and advice and being on here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Bridging the Gap podcast. We were honored to hear from Stacy Sikorski on how self-care is more than just bubble baths and chocolate. Learn more about Bridging the Gap at mnbtg.org by downloading the Bridging the Gap app through your app store or by following MNBTG on social media. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to being with you next time on the Bridging the Gap podcast.